January had some seriously impressive vintage football card sales on eBay. One card sold for close to $20,000, and our top 25 starts at $2,000. And it's kind of great because this episode had a glaring PSA mistake on an autograph card. Wait till you see that in the top 5. All right, let's jump into some sales. Up first, criteria for this video: no duplicated cards are allowed in the top 25, but if there's an auto or variant, that's fine. Graded in raw cards are okay as well. And the card has to be 1986 or earlier to be defined as vintage. So jumping off over here, we're actually starting pre-order, which are kind of rare for these videos. I have Boltosi. And what's interesting is this is one of the tougher cards to find in the set, at least from reading some articles on the Chickle football set. The last 3 sale of this card was for $1,000, but this one sold for $2,000. It has been a year, but just letting you know, it did double the price over that time period. And yeah, let's keep moving forward. Next, we have a Johnny U 7.5 from SGC. This sold for $2,027, and this sold a little bit above the PSA 7 grade. The PSA 7 sells for about $1,700. 57 Tops is loaded with Hall of Fame rookie cards, and this is one of the premier ones in that set. Next, we have a Staubach in a PSA 8 grade. It always shocks me how many 8s are out there for some iconic cards. There's 427 8s, but there's only 82 that are graded higher. This copy over here sold for $2,100. Gale Sayers, we have a KSA slab, which we typically don't see in these videos also. KSA was a Canadian, or I shouldn't say was, they are a Canadian grading company. So you'll typically see these with some hockey cards or some like O-Pee-Chee cards from baseball, but regardless, this Sayers was graded by them, and this sold for $2,100. We have a Tom Landry 1951 Bowman in a PSA 8. Only 16 copies that are graded higher than this over here. There's 71 8s out there, and this sold for $2,142. In the 20th spot, we have a Mike Ditka rookie card from 1962. Now, these are super condition sensitive cards, kind of like 1971 Tops that are all black border. Any damage will show on these cards, where typically if you have a white bordered card, sometimes that damage will be hidden. Regardless, this is either a BVG or a BGS 8, and it sold for $2,500. In the 19th spot, Jim Thorpe. And Thorpe, known for Olympics, baseball, and football, one of the greatest athletes of all time. This is the iconic 1955 All-American set the Tops produced, one of the earliest football sets out there. And this sold for $2,901. Jim Ray Smith, 1961 Tops in a PSA 9. This is only a pop of 4, and it sold for $29.26 to a set registry collector. Anthony Munoz, 1982 dual 10 rookie card, 10 on the card and then 10 on the autograph itself. This sold for $3,050. If you want to find this in a 10 without the autograph, you're looking at $1,500. Tom Flores, 1965. These are like tall boys. And you know, the Namath card is in this set, probably the one that I think of when I first envision it. And this in a 9 is a pop of a 5. And it sold for $3,111. We're jumping into number 15 now. 1963 Tops Jim Brown. Another super condition sensitive set because of the colored borders. There's only 12 that are graded higher than this PSA 8 example over here. And this sold for $3,150. Number 14, we have another Jim Brown from 1961 Tops in a PSA 9. It's a pop 9. And for a PSA 9, and there are 010s out there, this sold for $3,155. Here's our Joe Namath, and this is the non-butterfly variant. If you want to look for the butterfly variant, look at his hand on the football. Anyways, this 5 sold for $3,600. If you want to find a 4, it's $2,400. If you jump into the 6th grade, you're looking at $5,000. Number 12, we have a 1957 Bart Starr autograph. Mentioned 57 being a loaded rookie class a little bit earlier. Starr is another one of the quarterbacks in there. And this, with an autograph, sold slightly higher than a PSA 7 with no autograph out there. This is going to be a 1 specimen because of that huge crease across. If it didn't have a crease, honestly, it has pretty good eye appeal on that side of things. And this sold for $3,750. Norm Van Brocklin, 1951 Bowman in a PSA 8. There's a few 51 Bowmans and 8s in this video so far. 11 graded higher, pop 61 in the 8 grade. This sold for $4,000. Now let's jump into a few honorable mentions before we jump into our top 10. Up first, we have a 1933 Sports Kings of Knute Rockne. This one sold for $1,100 for the legendary Notre Dame coach. We have another Bart Starr over here, PSA 6, non-auto on this, and it sold for $1,500. Mean Joe Green in a PSA 8. This is Pop 272 in this grade, 22 graded higher, sold for $1,610. Milt Plum, 1961 Topps in a PSA 9. It's a Pop 6 in the PSA 9 grade, none graded higher. This sold for $1,775, again, to a set registry collector. 1966 Philadelphia Bart Starr, Pop 26 PSA 9, which is actually a bit higher than I thought in this grade, and it sold for $1,800. 1971 Terry Bradshaw in a 7.5 grade. Half grades are always a bit odd in pricing, but this one sold for $1,800. Doug Williams, 1979 Topps. It's a Pop 29. This one sold for $1,950. 1986 Jerry Rice in a PSA 9. This one always shocks me with its pop. Over $1,100 in the PSA 9 grade. This sold slightly under $2,000. A 1981 football box, $1,836. And then a 1962 football complete set is sold for $1,500. As I showed you a little bit earlier, right? Super condition sensitive, and you can see a lot of these, any damage will showcase on these type of cards. And now let's jump into our top 10. So up first, we have another Jim Brown from 1964 Philadelphia. This is a pretty popular card, especially with the cars in the background on this one. This sold for $4,200. It's a Pop 53 and a PSA 9. If you do want to jump to that 10, PSA 10 has sold for about $120,000. It sold for $117,585. Number 9 is a Walter Payton box bottom from 1985 Topps. And you can see the four card panel over here to the bottom left. I tried showing you guys an image what this originally looks like. These are hand cut cards, but also being at the bottom of the box, they're going to absorb a ton of damage. So you typically don't see these in like a 9 grade. Also impacted other sports. You know, baseball had box bottoms. Hockey has some box bottoms as well. Typically, they aren't popular until you get into really, really high grades. This sold for $4,444.44. All right, Red Grange 1933 Sports Kings in a SGC4 was sold for $4,500. Lots and lots of pre-war this month's episode, which is really great to see. 1976 Walter Payton rookie card sold for $4,500 in the PSA 9 grade. There's 741 PSA 9s out there with only 56 PSA 10s. A 1984 Topps Dan Marino in a pristine 10 from Beckett. I'm shocked at how much these have gone down over time. The Beckett 10s, not this card specifically. You can find a PSA 10 of this for about $4,000. This BGS 10 is sold for $4,500. We're jumping into our top 5 now, and we have a 1958 Topps Jim Brown 8 with an OC qualifier. This was a bit of a high sale because it sold for about a PSA 7 price, and typically when you see a qualifier, you go down 2 grades. I believe that's how the set registry works. So a 6 sells for about $2,000. This copy over here sold for $4,500. What I will mention is these 58s tend to be off-centered all the time. So maybe someone is like, I don't care about the qualifier. I'm going to pay up for this card because it does have sharp corners. And look, this last weekend I went to a card show. I bought a 1957 Topps basketball card with a PSA 9 with an OC qualifier. But man, those corners were wicked sharp. And you'll see in that video whenever it's on the channel. 1935 Knute Rockne. Rockne on this list twice, which is good to see. The 7.5, which is a super impressive grade. This sold for $6,000. All right, in the number 3 spot, a PSA mistake of a card. So label says 1951 Bowman. Taking a look at the card, it is a 1948 leaf. I know there's also a 49 leaf for football, but I think this is a 48. Complete mistake on this. Super large autograph, which is awesome to see on this as well. I believe this is the first Sammy Baugh autograph that I've covered in this vintage football series. Correct me if I am wrong if you've watched other videos. But you typically don't see a lot of early, or I should say late 40s or early 50s autographs on the series itself. And yeah, this card over here sold for $6,500. Number 2, 1984, John Elway in a PSA 10. This sold for $9,000. There's 191 PSA 10s out there. A PSA 9 is about $400. The top selling card this month, Bronco Nagurski, 1935 Chickle in a PSA 2. About in line with the typical PSA 2 comp. And this sold for $20,000. Widely regarded as one of the best pre-war football cards out there. And Nagurski was also a famous wrestler. He has wrestling cards in the 1950s. Thanks guys for checking out this video. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're uploading at least 3 different card videos every single week. And I'll catch you in another video.